Hi, Eric Aaron here. Just wanted to share some thoughts today. I feel weird because I don't have a ukulele in my hands. I wanted to share some thoughts about one of my recent videos, which was about the song Old Man Trump, which Woody Guthrie wrote 70 odd years ago about Fred Trump, Donald Trump's father. So I love history. I love the history of songs. I love that you can understand, you can get a better understanding of what was going on at the time and what was going on in people's lives when they wrote these songs. So that was really my impetus for sort of doing this, was diving deep into some different songs. I chose this one to begin with because I was like, geez, this song is 70 plus years old. It still has resonance today in today's politics, and Woody Guthrie writing so many songs that were, politically charged and socially charged. I said, geez, this is a really interesting song. And I thought, why not start with this song? And I'll do a little history of the song, and then I'll do a little play along, right? So most people really enjoyed that. There were hundreds of comments. I read every single one of them. I appreciate every single one of you for watching the video and commenting afterwards and sharing your thoughts and your experiences. And there were definitely some trends that came up in the comments, and I figured I'd talk a little bit more about those today, just to kind of go a little bit more in depth with things I didn't cover in the video, but things that might be interesting to you. So a lot of people asked about, why did Woody move into these apartments, if these racial practices were being held by Fred Trump. And the real answer is these were very common at the time, especially in the 1950s. Like, segregation was still a thing. Like, you got to remember, 1947 was the year that baseball finally broke the color line with Jackie Robinson. And that was only a few years before this. So the vast majority of America at this time was still very segregated. So this was not something new. However, Woody, being as socially conscious as he was really fed up with it. My understanding was he had a friend who he played with quite often, and he tried to get him to come out and get an apartment, and this sort of all came up that he was not allowed to because he was black. So not knowing that Fred Trump's racial policies at the time was not that uncommon. It was not something that Woody would have known ahead of time. It's not like now where we have the internet and there's a wealth, sometimes a tidal wave of knowledge around some of these things where you can easily find out things. At the time, these were not public knowledge. It was a lot of people just telling friends and sharing the information. It wasn't like it was publicly shared that these racial practices were in place. Another group of comments that came up were, geez, I never heard the song. Did you write it yourself? Which I wish. It's a very interesting song, and I can't take credit for it. But a lot of people were wondering why Woody Guthrie never recorded the song. So the answer is, like, Woody Guthrie wrote lyrics to over 2,000 songs. So if you go to the Woody Guthrie Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there's an archive of over 2,000 finished-ish songs that were in his notebooks. There's lots of couplets that they don't include in that, or just sort of rhyming things that he did. But there were over thousands of finished songs that he just never recorded. At the time, you didn't have the opportunity to record as easily as you do now, where, like, I can pull out my phone and record a song. Like, there were far less opportunities for a song to be recorded. So which is why he never recorded it. Sometimes it might have been almost more of journaling to him, so like the song I Ain't Got No Home, which he did record, actually did have verses in it about Trump, which he took out in the final recorded version. So part of it might have just been getting this off his chest and getting it written down, and he was moving on from there with it. So another group of questions that came up were, about the melody. That was like, why was this melody selected if he never recorded it? How do they know what he would have selected for a melody? which is a great question, and again, I thank everybody for commenting on this video and sharing their thoughts. From my understanding, his daughter, Woody Guthrie's daughter, Nora Lee Guthrie, she runs the archives at the Woody Guthrie Center, and she worked with Ryan Harvey and some other musicians to sort of, once these lyrics were found, they wanted to record them. And so Woody Guthrie would famously reuse a lot of his melodies and the chords that were used over and over and over with a lot of his songs. As they were working through the song, they said, geez, I Ain't Got No Home works really well with these lyrics in terms of, the timing and the pace and the tempo and so their thought was Woody likely was thinking of setting this or potentially playing this to that melody. So that's why they selected that melody. So there were also a lot of, not a lot, there was a handful of negative comments, that were calling out, basically attacking Woody as being a communist. Woody Guthrie famously said, left wing, right wing, chicken wing, it don't mean a thing, so his politics were, he was self-described as a communist, emphasizing shared humanity, equality over strict ideological labels, So did he write articles for communist magazines? He did. He also fought for the United States in World War II and wrote, this land is your land, because he loved this country so much. That's all, part of the story, is being communist, at least in terms of like the Marxist view, is everybody's treated equally. He was anti-capitalism, he was anti-fascism, but he was strongly American. He was just critical of some of the, nationalism and things like that were going on. So there was also like that strong wind of McCarthyism in the 1950s, around the time that this was recorded, where a lot of, left wing or, lots of artists, being musicians, being actors, were targeted by the government for being quote unquote communists, where really it was just they were expressing views that were dissenting with McCarthy and some of his cronies, but even, Eisenhower was distanced himself from McCarthyism and some of the things that they were doing. So you can call someone a communist, it doesn't make them necessarily a bad person, so that's something to keep in mind as you throw labels around at people, and, keep an open mind, be willing to talk to your neighbor and figure out where they're coming from, right? So a few people also did not like the mixing of the story with the tutorial. I might experiment with doing the tutorials separate and a combined version. It really comes from, I love history and I love music, and I love the stories behind these songs, how these songs were created, what generated that artist what was the muse that poured those words out into music. I lead ukulele strums, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll kind of talk through like what these, what the background behind some of these songs that we're playing, was, what drove the person to write these songs. And so this is something I find really interesting, share your thoughts in the comments below, what you think. That said, I'm not always going to do politically based videos like this. This one happened to be a very political song, but Woody was a very political guy. All his songs, were about social justice and finding rights for the common man and those who were not appreciated, minors, all these sort of people who at the time were, looked down upon. And so he was trying to lift everybody up. So Woody was, obviously, I think, among the greatest American songwriters in history. So I think it's important to acknowledge that. And so part of what I was just bringing up was this was a really unique song that had ties to politics. Again, ties to politics today, which is not usually the case when you're looking at songs that are 70 plus years old. And so that was kind of why I chose this song. I've done a couple other ones about some other topics. Blowing in the Wind was one. Wade in the Water, about its roots to slavery. Some are just going to be more histories of the song. I've got some ideas for some other ones. If you have ideas, put them in the comments below. If you like these, tutorials with the history of the song behind them, also let me know. But anyway, just wanted to share some thoughts, about the Old Man Trump video I did. I appreciate all of you who watched it and commented. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Please subscribe, share your thoughts, like the video, all that good stuff. And most importantly, keep on strumming.